Hi everyone. In this video, we'll try to learn materialized view. So in the previous video, we have seen what is simple view, what is complex view. And in this video, I'll just try to give you a brief idea that how exactly materialized view is used, right? So when you have an SQL query, which is taking long time to execute and so then you should try to create a materialized view, put that select SQL query inside the materialized view and then run that materialized view. You can see a way better performance, right? So I have used a word called performance, right? So in SQL, in Oracle SQL or any of the database, as a matter of fact, there is a dedicated topic called performance optimization, right? SQL performance optimization. To improve the performance of a query, there are a lot of tactics that you can apply. Materialized view is one of them, right? There are indexes. There is a concept in SQL called indexes. We use it to improve the performance of a query. We use materialized view. There are a lot of techniques that we use to improve the performance of a query. Now, what do I mean by improving the performance of a query? To improve the performance of a query, that means if a query is taking too much time, अगर एक क्वेरी बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम ले रही है एग्जीक्यूट होने के लिए एंड इफ इट इज़ टेकिंग टू मच टाइम एंड देन इट इज़ गिविंग यू डेटा, दैट मीन्स द परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ अ क्वेरी इज़ टू बैड, राइट? So then we need to check. We need to see the explain plan of a query. We need to check the execution plan of the query. There are certain way to see the execution plan of a query, and then we can identify where exactly the problem is, right? So materialized view we use to improve the performance of a query, right? What are the things that we need to see? Why materialized view? How materialized view improve the performance of a query? What is the difference between materialized view and the normal view? And what is the issue with the materialized view, right? There are certain issues also associated with the materialized view. So let us try to understand what exactly the materialized view is. A materialized view is a database object. As the way we have a view, it is created over a SQL query similar to a view, but when we create the materialized view, it basically store two things, right? It basically does two things, or is basically store two things. What is the first one? First one is it stores the SQL query that is used to create the materialized view. It stores the SQL query that is used to create the materialized view, and it stores the data that is returned from the query. So it has the capability to store the data also, like a physical table. It has the capability to store the data, right? So it does two things. It stores the select SQL query and it stores the data as well, right? So when it comes to comparison, right? When it comes to comparison, what is the difference between simple view, complex view and materialized view? So you can see this chart. This will help you a lot. Simple view, it's a logical table created from a single base table. Complex view, it's a logical table created for more than one base table. I told you about complex view, more than one base table. What about materialized view? Like a physical table that store the query output or intermediate results, right? Just like a physical table, it stores the SQL query and it also stores the intermediate results, right? Now in simple view, it does not hold the data. Complex view also, it does not hold the data, but especially in case of materialized view, it has the capability to hold the data as well. Right? This is how materialized view work. I'll directly jump to SQL developer and I'll give you a practical example. But before going to a practical example, I'll just try to give you a layman example to understand the materialized view. So the very much layman example that you can give to an interviewer also, because this video is dedicated for interview purpose. So if somebody is telling you to explain materialized view, right? So how can you explain? So you can give that layman example. For example, if you are hitting a website or you are browsing a website, for example, facebook.com, right? Now you don't actually hit the website, you hit the IP address which is associated to the website, right? You hit the IP address. Now for the first time when you hit the IP address in the browser, that takes a lot of time, right? That website takes a lot of time to get loaded. Right? But when the second time you try to hit that IP address or third time, right, it will get loaded very fastly. What is the reason? Because that IP address is now got saved in the cache memory. That page gets saved in the cache memory, right? That is the reason for the second time or a third time when you try to hit the URL, You will get the website much way faster. Same concept is applicable in the case of materialized view as well. Same concept is applicable in the case of materialized view as well, right? How? So when you put the select SQL query under the materialized view as a physical table, it stores the data intermediately in the cache memory, intermediately in the local memory. It stores the local copy. It stores the local copy in the intermediate space, in the intermediate cache memory as a local copy. So when you run the materialized view, instead of going to the base table, right? Instead of going to the base table, this materialized view will get the data from the intermediate cache memory, from the intermediate cache memory. That is the reason you can see result more faster. Now let me come back to the basic point. What was the reason that you have created a materialized view? The reason was that your query is taking too much time. It is taking too much time. So to improve the performance of a query, you use materialized view. That is the purpose, to improve the performance of a query. Now the next question is, how did it improve the performance? When you create the materialized view and put the SQL query inside a view, instead of going to the base table, it is storing the data into the local copy and getting the data from the local copy itself. That is the reason you are seeing output very much faster in a very short span of time, right? That is the reason you create materialized view. But there is a shortcoming also. What is the shortcoming? The shortcoming is, what is the basic behavior of a view? The basic behavior of a view is that when you change the base table, right? When you change the base table, the view gets reflected automatically. But that doesn't happen in case of materialized view. Why? Because the view is not going to the base table. The view is still referring to the local copy of data. And that's the reason, you are getting the result faster. But for example, if somebody have changed data, or somebody have inserted something, somebody have deleted something, right? Somebody have updated something in the base table, those changes will not get reflected. For that reason, again, you have to create or refresh the materialized view manually, right? That's how the concept works. So this is the disadvantage, that the data will not get the updated, or the latest data will not get reflected automatically. The second disadvantage with this materialized view is that it occupies a lot of space. That's the problem. It occupies a lot of space. Space ka issue hai. Now you must be thinking that if it gives the best performance or a very good query optimization, if it is a very good query optimization technique, then what we need to do, then what we can or what we should do, right? We should create a materialized view on each and every table. Then it's not like that, because it creates a lot of space. It has a space issues. That's the reason on some of the queries we can create a materialized view, right? So just to give you an example, what I can do is I can give you an example by this queries. So we have a table called employee_1. I am just trying to give you a practical example. I'll put the code in the chat box also. Insert query or create query. You can create the table, insert the data, and then create the materialized view, and then you will see the difference, right? So I have just done a count of star on the employee1 table. We have 18 lakh records, right? It's a huge data that we have in this table. Now in this table, that is your employee_2. Still for this also, we have 18 lakh records. So we have total 36 lakh records in both the tables, right? Now I have created this query, somewhat complex query. If you are a beginner, then definitely you will feel that it's a complex query, but I'll just try to explain you what exactly is happening, right? Now this form of writing a query is known as select under select. This is not a subquery, by the way. Subquery is a different concept. If you want to know about subquery, refer my segment for subquery. This is not a subquery. This is known as select under select, or this is known as select within select. Now I have not taught you select within select. That's a different concept. We'll try to learn that. But just for time being, to tell you about this, that you can retrieve, you can first write the select query, and from this query, whatever column that you want to retrieve, you can put again one more select query outside, and then you can get the data from this query. Now this select query is there inside a bracket, right? And that is acting as a temporary table. Even though if you are not able to get this concept over here, no worries. Select under select or a temporary table ka concept, we'll discuss it in a different video. Here my overall purpose is to teach you about a materialized view. So even if you don't get the logic of this query, no worries, we'll have to focus over here. So this is one query that I have written, and outside of the query I am again writing a select a dot star from. Now after from clause, what do you expect, right? Select star from table, right? So this is acting as a table. Right? And I have given an alias to this particular table, A. Now this is acting as a temporary table. Right? Now one more query I have written. This query is also written inside the bracket. Now whatever query you write inside the bracket, that will be executed first, right? And also this is acting as a temporary table, and you have given that table name as B. This is your table A temporary table, and this is your table B temporary table, and you are joining these two tables, right? So how the overall query will become: select A dot star from this table, join this table. On which column you are joining? You are joining A dot department number is equals to B dot department number, right? So this is your A table temporary and B table, and there is a column over here called department number. So you are saying on A dot department number is equals to B dot department number. Not much complex query, but if you are able to write select under select, how you can write it, it will become easy for you. We'll discuss this topic. Now if I run this query, how much data that we are getting? We are getting total 9 number of records. So what exactly we have done inside the query? We have just retrieve all the aggregate function, and here I have just applied some calculations over here, and I am doing group by department number, right? Here also some random calculation, aggregate function retrieval, and I am saying group by department number over here. All right. So we are getting a total 9 number of records. Now how much time this query is taking? It is taking 1.752 seconds. Can you see that? Let me zoom in so that you can see it. It is taking 1.752 seconds. So what was the whole idea of materialized view? Still we have not created materialized view. अभी तक हमने सिर्फ क्वेरी रन किया है, materialized view create नहीं किया है. What we will do is, just to check the performance, we'll put this query, select query, inside a materialized view, and then we'll run this materialized view, and then we see the performance difference. Then we'll see the difference in the performance, right? So 1.752 seconds this query is taking. Now let me create materialized view. I think with this name I already have a view created, so I can say _1. Just to change the name. With the same name we cannot create one more materialized view, right? If you have the same name, then you have to give one another name. It is saying materialized view mv_random_tab_1 is created. This is just a random name that I have given. Now what we'll do is copy this particular view name and select the data. Select star from this. Now this time it is taking 0.027 seconds. Can you see that? Let me zoom in. 0.02 second, less than a second, right? 0.02 second. Now if I run this again, how much time it will take? It is taking this time 0.002 seconds. 0.002 seconds. If I run this again, 0.001 second. Right? So this is the least. That's how the concept of materialized view come into the picture. When you want to improve the performance of a query, put that query inside the materialized view, and then you can see the result much more faster, right? Here there is a difference in the time, but very less difference, and because this is a dummy data, we have just inserted the dummy data into the table. But when you work with the practical data warehouse, what is data warehouse? That is something different. We'll try to learn that in the next videos. But data warehouse is something when you have huge volume of data, when you have bulk volume of data, right? So when you see, when you run the query on the data warehouse, then you can see queries are taking too much time. Then in that case, to improve the performance of a query with real-time tables, with real-time data, this materialized view is very handy and very useful. All right. I hope you got the concept, and I hope you got the disadvantages also. What are the disadvantages? First one is, if I do changes in the base table, this will not be reflecting in the materialized view. And what is the one more? It takes a lot of space also, right? This is really important for interview purpose. I hope you got the concept. Thanks for watching. Till then, happy learning.